Global Transformation Astrology, GTA, with William Stickevers.
So now we get into the secrecy. We'll get into the astrology part, but I want to lay out the framework here for you all to understand, like, what's really going on here is like the dam has burst. Well, let's just put it this way. The dam has a leak they cannot seal. And at some point, there'll be enough pressure that will bust the whole dam open. And this deals particularly with the legacy program. Now, the film transitions into discussing the nature of the legacy program, which is a parallel state. Like I said, the funding and the manpower and the scientific industrial intelligence that is allocated to this parallel state, what they call a legacy program, which basically captures a real government operating within a government beyond constitutional insight. So these whistleblowers, these people, over 30 people in the highest level of government, are all basically saying that this legacy program is not just about technology. They talk about it in the film that it's about government legitimacy. So this program has been active for 80 years. It operates with its own funding, its own security, its own authority, entirely firewalled from constitutional oversight. Its primary purpose is to retrieve and reverse engineer unidentified phenomenon hidden from public oversight through disinformation and institutional resistance. Right. So this is all coming from the film. Organizational structure, they go into the multi-agency collaboration. So it's the CIA, Air Force. The big one is the Department of Energy, by the way, managing the analysis, research, and storage of recovered advanced technologies, and defense contractors, such as Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin was discussed quite a bit. And so the CIA is for coordination and intelligence gathering. The Air Force is for retrieval. They retrieve the actual craft that go down. If that craft goes down in China, the U.S. Air Force gets that craft before the Chinese do. I mean, multiple times. No country was off limits. If it goes down in Brazil, they're going to take the craft. It doesn't matter. It is a military mission of the highest order. It's a secret, covert mission using the best technology we have to retrieve that craft to make sure we have total dominance over acquiring this technology. And the DOE, the Department of Energy, is the one for material analysis and secure storage. That's where they secure all of these craft. That's why you won't see that at an Air Force base. And the contractors, such as Lockheed Martin, which is the biggest contractor for reverse engineering, they keep it all secret because they are not operating under government oversight. So there's plausible deniability. This is why Congress has no access to any of these. Congress cannot get information. So in other words, the CIA has got an organization within the CIA, a CIA within the CIA, an Air Force within the Air Force, a Department of Energy within the Department of Energy, and defense contractors, Lockheed Martin, right? They're developing certain aircraft, Stealth 6 fighters, etc. That's the front end. The back end is the UFO reverse engineering. So the film talks about that. They talk about the defense contractors, how the private sector involvement was strategically important. Once the technology sits in private hands, it's no longer simply a national security issue. It's a corporate governance issue protected by privilege. And it makes it very difficult, even for the President of the United States, to get on the phone with the CEO of Lockheed and say, hey, I want to come in and see everything in your facility or I will shut you down. Now, legally speaking, you cannot do that. Now, they're trying to change the laws on this, but right now, if Lockheed has a weapons system that they developed that's so far more powerful than anything we know, the President of the United States may not be informed on that. Now, probably he is, but he may not. Lockheed is not required, for instance. So this is why I'm saying, like, they could have very advanced UFO type of craft that we reverse engineered flying around these triangles all over the place. And yet the U.S. Air Force would say we have no awareness of this, right? And it's purposely done this way. They don't want you knowing. So maintaining secrecy for 80 years, disinformation campaign, sophisticated efforts to create public ridicule. They actually have individuals that target people who actually come forth on radio shows, coast to coast, completely destroy their credibility, lower their credit score. They do all sorts of things. Witness intimidation, individuals who encounter UAPs or knew about the program faced systematic pressure and information denial. There was a categorical refusal to acknowledge any such programs. This is all built in with the government legal structure. This is how the triad of disinformation, intimidation, denial, how long-term secrecy is maintained in any domain. This information doesn't have to be elaborate. Often it is just social engineering by intelligence agencies that basically have very sophisticated programs to implement ridicule, narrative confusion to the media, clearance threats, reputational damage, right? All tactics of intimidation, even death threats. So information denial is the public-facing layer. We have nothing. There is nothing to see here. There is no there. But denial is only sustainable if the culture punishes inquiry. And that's why the stigma is so powerful. It turns the public into the enforcement mechanisms. So in the movie, they talk about the government schism. This is a very important thing because I've been talking about the Pluto return since 2022 ad nauseum, right? And then finally in this movie, they talk about the schism. This is not red pill, blue pill schism. Maybe it is to some degree. This is not Democrat versus Republican, Kamala versus Trump schism. This is the government schism at the deepest level. The schism implies there are competing interests. Those who hoard information as leverage, those who believe secrecy has become illegal, dangerous, and morally untenable, basically corrupting the core of the government. And this is not good versus evil. It's two governance philosophies: stability through repression and control, like we see in China, or stability through legitimacy and accountability. So they are fighting with each other right now. And this is actually discussed in depth in the film. Methods of control, there's like a field manual of secrecy. Stovepipes prevent synthesis, stigma prevents reporting, contracting shields, I should say, prevent public access, bureaucratic warfare blocks oversight. So notice how none of these require aliens to be true. These are standard methods for protecting against any sensitive information. That's why this model is pervasive and persuasive. It's structurally grounded. So this is the immune response. This is how institutions behave like organisms. This is what the legacy program is about. The disclosure fight that's ongoing is not about information. It's about system behavior under threat. What was also discussed in the film, by the way, and this is really amazing, there's many people within the Pentagon and the Department of Defense and all the different departments that have religious opposition inside of leadership, and they sabotage funding. They are also responsible for destroying careers. They even talk of extreme measures of, assassinations against whistleblowers. And the reason is this goes against their Christian, I'm using the word Christian here because it was mentioned. They didn't say Buddhist, they didn't say Jewish. This goes against their Christian beliefs and principles about God, about humanity. So basically, this is the work of the devil. These are people at super high levels of the Pentagon basically saying, we have to destroy this. We have to repress this because this is the devil. This is evil entities that are basically what we would call, demons, if you will, that work under Satan or for Satan. This has nothing to do with intelligence. This has to do with extraterrestrial. Actually, technically, they would be ultra-terrestrial if they are really the legion of demons who, the big question is, why do demons need operational craft, right? Nobody can answer that. Or why do they need biologics for that matter as well? So the insiders interpret the UAP through theological frames. Basically, there's a theological rift, a theological schism going on inside of Washington over this matter.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.